The afternoon of the 30th of July 1966, England and West Germany walk out onto the Wembley turf.
It felt like there were 50 million people up there, you know, wanting us to win. The hairs on the back of my neck just stood up when you hear that.
We were facing that way where we had come out of the tunnel. We were facing that way, and above there it said, England 0, West Germany 0. And I remember looking at it and thinking to myself, I wonder what that'll read like in another hour and a half.
3 years before, England manager Alf Ramsey had made a bold promise that his team would achieve the ultimate prize.
Well, I personally believed him. I think it was the confidence to know in your own mind that you were terribly well prepared.
He was always right, spot on. Yeah, Alf Ramsey says we can win it, yeah, we can. And we didn't doubt it for a moment.
Using original colour film, this is the story of how Ramsey's promise was fulfilled, told by the men who fulfilled it. In 1960, FIFA decided that the 1966 World Cup finals, the first to take place after the 100th anniversary of the birth of the organised game, would be staged in football's home, England. It would be the biggest international sporting event to be staged in Britain since the Olympic Games of 1948. The man charged with carrying the nation's hopes of victory was Alf Ramsey. A right-back at Southampton and Tottenham, he'd won 32 caps, captaining his country on 3 occasions. In 1955, Ramsey became manager at 3rd Division Ipswich Town. Within 6 years, achieved the extraordinary feat of taking them to the 2nd and the 1st Division Championships in successive seasons. In 1962, Ramsey was offered the role of England manager.
I feel very honoured that I should be offered this position, and I hope that I shall be as successful with the England team as I've been here.
His formal appointment the following year was revolutionary.
You have to appreciate, first of all, that Alf Ramsey was the first professional England manager. Walter Winterbottom had been the boss for many years, but there were committees involved in selection and so on and so forth. Ramsey was the boss, the first one.
Suspicious of the press and old-fashioned in his approach, Ramsey was a difficult character. Polite and passionate, he could also be distant and uncompromising.
He never let you forget that he was in charge. If you happened to feel just a little bit familiar, you know, he would wrap your knuckles straight away, and you didn't think that you were better than you were.
He kept himself aloof from people. He never got to the point where he wouldn't sit and talk and have a drink with you. He never got that close. He kept away from that, and I think that was a good idea.
He didn't like me. I mean, the first time I met him, he looked across and he came across me and he went, Mr. Charlton, isn't it? And he shook hands with me, and I went, hello, Mr. Ramsey. And then he turned and went back to the guy he'd been talking to and never spoke to me again for 6 years.
He may have been an awkward character, but Ramsey was a master tactician. 2 years into his reign, he began to play with the new formation with which he'd experimented at Ipswich. Abandoning the use of 2 out-and-out wingers, Ramsey bolstered his midfield. In December 1965, England played a friendly against Spain, using the new 4-3-3 system.
They were a real top side, full house. We won 2-0, we absolutely murdered them, and the reports the next day were the wingless wonders. And that was the first time that we'd played without wingers, and we played terrific that day.
Ramsey's system proved to be more fluid and adaptable, and initially baffled the opposition.
I can remember seeing the two fullbacks looking across at each other, you know, and they were, because normally, you know, immediately the whistle went, they would expect to see a right winger or a left winger coming towards them, and there was nobody. And as they were literally saying this, you know, there are wingers, we were going in droves through the middle of the field. And to win in Spain was quite a difficult thing. But suddenly, not only did we win, we won easily.
England began to play with a newfound confidence and consistency. At the end of the domestic season, in June 1966, Ramsey took his players to a training camp in Lilleshall. Here he would select his final World Cup squad.
If you can imagine that 2 weeks there was intense training and everybody was kind of desperate to get in the team.
Everybody was unsure. He left you in that uncertainty, which I think was good because it kept everybody on their toes. You were not thinking, well, I'm in it, I can just sit back and just take it easy here.
I remember his conversation saying, George, welcome to the squad, and you're only in the squad. You know, you may get picked for the team, but you're only in the squad.
One man who could have been confident of his selection was centre-half Bobby Moore, whom 3 years before Ramsey had appointed as England's youngest ever captain. Geoff Hurst had grown up alongside Moore at West Ham.
He was very composed in his manner, never got excited on the field. The things that I remember about him in the early days, and he built on that. And you would guarantee that when the big occasion came, he would be great, he would never freeze. And he raised his game. He played brilliantly. If he played for England, he'd play better. And if he played for the world against Mars, he'd be even better.
Around the influential Bobby Moore, the manager was creating a side absolutely in his own image. Tough, taciturn, and with a potential for greatness.
There's a football fella, you all know his name, and the papers tell us he's in the Hall of Fame.
July 1966, preparations for the greatest football contest in the world were in full swing, as England was gripped by football fever.
There was a feeling within the country. I mean, you know, it was the biggest thing since the Olympics of 1948. And, you know, suddenly the World Cup was here. We are the home of football. We invented the game. It was huge excitement, as far as I can recall.
But it all nearly began with disaster. In March, the famous Jules Rimet trophy was stolen while on display in Westminster. It was a dog called Pickles who spared the nation's blushes, finding the cup under a garden bush in Norwood, South London.
Now we found someone who makes the rafters ring.
Fresh from training camp and a warm-up tour of Europe, the final squad of 22 settled into their North London HQ in Hendon, 4 days ahead of the tournament's kick-off. Once again, Alf confidently reiterated to the press the promise he'd made in 1963, that England would win the World Cup.
Well, did Alf actually say that? Well, he did. He didn't care what the press thought about it. I mean, some said, you know, is he joking? Some went on the bandwagon and said, yeah, this is great, you know, let's go for it. It was, whoa, that's a bold statement to make.
Ramsey's statement was bold, given England's poor history on the world stage. The first World Cup was held in 1930, but England didn't even choose to take part until 1950, when they suffered an embarrassing 1-0 defeat at the hands of the USA. In the tournaments that followed, they never progressed beyond the quarterfinals. The nation's pride took perhaps its most humiliating blow in 1953, when England suffered a 6-3 mauling in a friendly against Hungary. It was a harsh lesson. England was forced to re-evaluate its footballing status. 13 years on, Ramsey's England had the chance to re-establish pride in the national game. As football fans around the world braced themselves for the tournament, 7 cities around the country became home from home for the 15 visiting teams who were all ready to stake their claim on football's biggest prize. Favourites and reigning champions were Brazil. Rank outsiders, the first-time qualifiers of North Korea.
From the four quarters of the earth they came, pilgrims united in devotion to the world's greatest sport.
On the 11th of July, a crowd of 87,000 packed Wembley Stadium for the opening of the 8th World Cup. More than 10 million people around the country gathered around their black and white TV sets.
I welcome all our visitors and feel sure that we shall be seeing some fine football.
The opening ceremony over, England geared up for their first match against Uruguay.
The toss gave Uruguay the advantage of playing with the sun behind them. England kicked from right to left. They adopted the 4-3-3 formation, hoping for that best of football tonics an early goal.
Ramsey's selection for the opener saw England's leading goal scorer Jimmy Greaves of Spurs start up front with John Kennelly of Manchester United and Liverpool's Roger Hunt.
There was great expectations. We just thought, you know, we're going to get a good win here. Everybody was confident. And even though we knew Uruguay were going to be tough to beat, we felt that we would be better than them. But as it turned out, we didn't beat them.
Uruguay's stifling defensive tactics worked. It was the first time England had failed to score at Wembley since 1938.
The Uruguayans didn't want to play, and everybody was saying, win the World Cup. What's all this about? It was a dreadful 0-0 draw, so then that was the first wave of criticism.
The press would be the press, and they weren't very happy with the performance, but nor were we.
We were a little bit disappointed, disheartened maybe a little bit too, that maybe it was going to be a bit more difficult than we thought. Alf took us for a trip out. He didn't really give many perks, you know. He took us on a trip out to Pinewood Studios because there was a James Bond film on.
We had a good time and relaxed, and met Yul Brynner and Sean Connery and one or two other people, and he allowed us to have half a lager as well.
I remember having probably a drink to him anyway over there. But it was just the right thing to do, to be honest. It just took us away from everything.
The visit to the set of You Only Live Twice proved to be the perfect tonic. 4 days later, England was stepping out alongside their next opponent, Mexico. Ramsey juggled the team. West Ham's Martin Peters replaced Ball in midfield, while Terry Payne of Southampton was selected up front alongside Greaves and Hunt. Again, the game started disappointingly, but in the 37th minute, Bobby Charlton got the ball.
Everyone seemed to back away, you know. They seemed to back away. And I just hit it in the general direction of the far side, and it flew straight in the top corner. Oh, I was happy. I was really happy after that. I thought, well, hey, we were back on track. We didn't have to be afraid anymore. Come on, we've got a goal now, and we got another goal later on, and 1-2-0 as it was, and suddenly, yeah, we're back into the race.
Next opponents were France. England came away with a 2-0 win, but it was a tackle by Nobby Stiles that stole the headlines.
Didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to do him or whatever. He was a smashing lad, Jackie Seaman. By all accounts, he played on later, Jackie. But it was a bad tackle. There's no doubt about it. Well, Nobby caught him somewhere between the thyroid gland and the crutch. Rather laid him out, you know, and he decided to disappear behind me. And as he went past, I said, good God, Nobby, what did he do to deserve that? He said, called me Norbert. So,
The FA suggested to Ramsey that he drop Styles from the next game. He refused.
Alf said, well, you know, I picked the side, and it would be up to me. If you don't want nobody to play and you want to pick the side, then I'll go. It was one or the other. You either have me, or you let me go, and that was Alf, you see.
England were through to the final 8, but it was an interesting quarter-final lineup. With Pelé bullied out of the tournament, the champions Brazil had struggled. They had gone out alongside the highly fancied Spanish and Italians. The biggest surprise came from the North Koreans. Following a 1-0 victory over Italy, they went through, together with Portugal, Hungary, the Soviet Union, Uruguay and West Germany. England would face Argentina. Still experimenting with his team, Ramsey dropped Callaghan from his strike force for the quarter-final, replacing him with Ball to strengthen the midfield. Up front, Hump was now partnered by Jeff Hurst, who replaced an injured Jimmy Greaves.
We went into a 4-4, a loose 4-4-2, which, as opposed to a 4-3-3, but again, a loose 4-3-3. You were able to adapt on these things. But certainly with the two front runners, Jeff and Roger, we had two very, very strong but very brave players.
Argentina were a formidable side, but prone to underhand tactics.
They'd pull you, they'd pinch your ear, they'd go to touch you on the face, and they'd just squeeze you. They'd just annoying things. They were the first people I really saw diving about.
Alf said, do not retaliate. Whatever you do, you have to walk away from everything. But, you know, it was difficult. And when you're seeing your teammates being lumped here and lumped there, and maybe the odd spit here and there, you know, it's difficult for you not to react yourself, even though you're not involved.
I remember going up for a corner kick, and I jumped with the goalkeeper that had to challenge for a ball. And we both fell over. And I was lying on the ground, and there was about 4 Argentinians came round me, 4 or 5 of them came round me, and they were kicking me. And our kid actually jumped in the middle, our Bob jumped in the middle, and was pushing them off.
The game continued to deteriorate. Finally, Argentina's number 10, Captain Antonio Ratin, went too far.
Every time there was a foul or something in the match, he would be there. When someone had fouled me and the referee had given a free kick, all I can see him was walking around with the referee. And the referee had given the decision, and he was sort of trying to wave him away, but he wouldn't go. And he just said, off.
The crowd were going absolutely berserk. He wouldn't go. And now he turns around calling his players to go off the field. He wanted to take the team off the field. And then on comes an interpreter, obviously saying to him, look, if you take your team off, you forfeit the game. England will go through. They do drag him off eventually.
Down to 10 men, Argentina finally succumbed to a Jeff Hurst goal. But again, England's performance was overclouded by controversy. At the final whistle, tempers flared. Ramsey found himself at the centre of the storm.
Alf just came along and said, "You just said you're not swapping it with that." Couldn't possibly tell you what he said, but it wasn't pretty, and he was very, very angry. And of course, I ended up with a shirt with an arm about 4 feet long. You could see some of the things they were doing could end a career.
Oh, we got back in, and they were actually banging and nearly bashing the door down, and I just remember saying to them, "For Christ's sake, let them in." Yeah, because there was about half a dozen who were smaller than me, so.
Ramsey didn't hold back in his criticism of the South Americans and was reprimanded by the FA. The Argentina game had been another difficult hurdle, but it marked a crucial turning point for the home side. Ramsey seemed to have found the right team formula. The defence were yet to concede a goal. In the absence of Greaves, Jeff Hurst had combined well up front with Hunt. With Peters, Stiles, Charlton and Ball, now the manager had a midfield to rival any. England had also won over their public.
Everybody's now banging the drum, no doubt about it. The Uruguay is history. The group matches are history. We're now marching on. And all through the country, optimism was gathering pace. Everybody was getting excited. Now we can do it, perhaps.
England playing better in each game and even exceeding the promise that all but a few critics believed them to have.
Despite a dubious start, England had reached the semi-finals. Only Portugal and their star forward, Eusebio, the tournament's top goal scorer, stood between Ramsey's wingless wonders and a place in the World Cup final.
Their team didn't worry us. Eusebio did. We knew we could beat them. We knew that we'd beat them. And it would all depend on how Eusebio was allowed to perform.
Ramsey had a plan to stop the Black Pearl.
Nobody just stuck with him. Magnificent defending, Nobby. I mean, you can understand why Alf had him in his team. He said, this is what I want you to do for 19 innings. And when you think about it, it can be the concentration of following somebody like that round and stopping him playing and not having a touch of the ball.
My job that day was to stop Eusebio. That was my job, you know. But I also had people helping me. People don't realise this. That Bobby Moore, Bobby came out more from the back then. So when he would put him under pressure, not as much as I would, but he'd put him under pressure.
With Stiles outstanding in his defensive duties, it was Bobby Charlton who shone in attack. He opened the scoring in the 30th minute, and with 10 minutes left, finally settled the nation's nerves.
George Cohen knocked the ball up to Jeff Hurst and he just rolled it back to me. And it flew in 2-0. I felt really as though I could run all night that night.
England conceded a penalty in the closing minutes of play. But it didn't matter. The hosts were through, 2-1 winners. England were now only one step away from fulfilling Alf Ramsey's promise.
We got to the final. We were in the final. Everybody loved it. The crowd loved it. The people of England were going to see England contest a World Cup final. Never been done before in the history of the English football. We got there.
It's going to be a difficult match for us, but all matches are difficult as far as I'm concerned. And in addition to that, of course, they're very efficient, they're a very strong side, very well organised, and I think, it's going to be a very interesting match.
England's opponents for the World Cup final would be West Germany, 2-1 winners of a tough semi-final against the Soviet Union.
They were pretty much similar to us. They were more physical and more fitter and more aggressive way of playing.
We had a lot of meetings and, had films and videos and all sorts of things to look at. I mean, Alf knew everything about their players, and there was a lot of kind of discussions about which job, who's going to do this job, who's going to do that job.
On the eve of the match, Ramsey privately let on to some of the squad that they would play in his final 11. By the next morning, speculation about whether Jimmy Greaves had made it was rife. But when the team was announced at noon, Jimmy was not in the side.
He was a player capable of winning any game on his own. He was a unique striker. But I had total faith in Alf Ramsey. He decided that he needed the type of player that Jeff Hurst was, rather than the type of player that Jimmy Greaves was, for the occasion.
I knew he must have been feeling disappointed. We can get injured and never play again, or miss big games. It's part and parcel of the life we lead. So I never felt particularly sorry for Jimmy. And we've very rarely talked about it, you know, since then. But I think it must be extremely difficult for Jimmy.
The last player to learn that he would play was told at breakfast.
Alf came straight over. He said, I'm keeping the same team that beat the Portuguese. You'll play right side of Bobby Charlton. Congratulations. Have a fantastic day. And I was like, shit, I was off to the phone. And I rang my dad, and he said, you know, I'll filter Morris Minor up and I'll get down, like, you know, what about our tickets? Sort our tickets. I said, I'll do all that, Dad. What about today? What advice can you give me? And he told me it was the greatest day of my little life.
Hot town, summer in the city, back of my neck getting dirt and gritty.
As the day unfolded, the excitement was reaching fever pitch.
I was working at the game, I wrote about the game, and I remember walking up the old Wembley Way. Everybody was caught up in the occasion. And there was a little band of buskers playing They'll Always Be in England.
We got on the bus, we travelled through Hendon, and people were, you know, on the pavement waving at us.
There's a fire engine depot just up the street, and he got the potty. He got the potty on his head, like, you know, get the cherries done, like, you know.
Some guy had a banner up which said Nobby Stiles for Prime Minister, which I thought that was wonderful.
And the crowd going, hey, Jack, you know, saying somebody from Newcastle, somebody from Leeds. I sat next to our Robert as we went up to the ground, and the crowd were amazing.
Well, you thought, this is it, this is the World Cup final. You had that sort of feeling of some kind of destiny in the air.
Roar that comes back down the tunnel. It's like a fire around, going through a building, through a tunnel, where it just roars through you, and it hits you, and you just, the hairs on the back of my neck just stood up when you hear that.
You start to walk up this slope, and that mouth gets bigger, and the noise gets louder, and all of a sudden you just breast that rise, and Wembley just unfolds in front of you. It's one of the most fantastic feelings you ever have in your life.
Walking out, I just remember as we walked out and we went and stood in lines, we were facing that way where we had come out of the tunnel. We were facing that way, and above there it said, England 0, West Germany 0. And I remember looking at it and thinking to myself, I wonder what that'll read like in another hour and a half.
3 o'clock. Bobby Moore exchanged pennants and shook the hand of his West German counterpart, Uwe Seeler. Battle was ready to commence. England adopted the 4-4-2 formation, which had been so successful against Argentina and Portugal. Ramsey's wingless wonders set about the ultimate test. It was an edgy start, with both sides showing their opponents the utmost respect.
Alf said, I want you to stay with Beckenbauer the whole match. I said, he's really dangerous. He says, he can really cause us problems because he's young, he's impetuous, he doesn't do what you expect him to do. And as soon as the whistle went, he came straight to me, Franz Beckenbauer, because he told me later, he had been told by Helmut Schön, to do the same thing with me.
After just 12 minutes, a misdirected header by Wilson dealt England their first blow.
Haller, that was it!
That was an awful mistake. I mistimed it pretty badly. It was pretty disappointing, but again, like I was saying before, that if you're a defender and you can't live with making mistakes and what have you, then you wouldn't turn out in the second half.
1-0 to West Germany. It was the first time in the tournament that England had gone behind. 6 minutes later, there was a chance for the home side.
It was a free kick on Bobby Moore. Bobby actually had the ball, tried to turn on it, he was fouled, and as Bobby, being very positive as usual, didn't give it to anybody else. There was only one guy taking the free kick, that was him.
Bobby hesitates a second because he's waiting for Jeff to create a space on the near post. Bobby hits a peach of a ball right into the near post and Jeff gets onto it and knocks it in the back of the net.
With 45 minutes played, the teams went in level.
A brief let-up in the tension came as welcome relief for both English and German supporters.
The second half, and England began to take control. With Charlton occupied with Beckenbauer in midfield, it was the England captain who began to exert his influence.
I started to see Bobby Moore start to creep forward again. Not very often did he come out and start to get forward on things, and you know, he was driving us in his own way, and again it toed and fro. The pitch started to cut up a little bit, which was good for a game of football because little tiny mistakes were starting to be made.
Excitement made the Wembley atmosphere electric. England had to score, and if the prayers of millions could inspire them, surely a goal was not far off.
I think it was 12 minutes from the end and Allen won a corner and it flew well over the top of me and went, in fact, it went out the edge of the box to Jeff Hurst, and I guess he should have passed it, but like a true striker had a shot, and it wasn't a particularly good shot, but it hit a guy called Hotchkiss on the leg and kind of looped in the air, coming across the goal, and the ball kind of fell to me in the air.
It's there! Peters has scored! For the Wembley thousands and the millions at home, one thought, victory!
Thought we've won it, you know. And then we maybe got a little bit frustrated, and we started pushing back. We wanted to protect it, and then there was the free kick that my brother gave away.
It was one of those, it wasn't a foul, and it was a ball that bounced, and as the ball bounced, I jumped up to head it, and never even saw the guy in front of me.
With 1 minute left on the clock, the referee awarded a free kick to West Germany, 10 yards outside the England penalty area.
Suddenly it's my responsibility on the end of the wall. Designated next to me was Nobby Stiles. I had Nobby Stiles pushing and shoving me all over the place. I think next to him was Bobby Charlton, and then Emmerich, the number 11, whacks the ball and it goes past our wall, and it hit George Kay on the leg and kind of run along the 6-yard box and got to the very end, and then number 6 Vaven knocked it in.
Agony for England. Weber scored.
And it was just devastating, really. You know, we kicked off and the referee blew the whistle. That's how close it was. You know, it was just devastating.
An 89th minute equaliser. England supporters were stunned into silence. For only the second time in the World Cup's history, the final would go to extra time.
But absolutely gutted. And some of the lads were going down on the floor. And I always remember Alf saying, you know, get up. Everybody get up. He said, look at the Germans. And we looked over at the Germans, and every one of them was flat out, getting their legs rubbed. Psychological thing.
He says, you've won this trophy once. He says, you've virtually got it in your hands. Now you've got to go out there and you've got to win it again. He says, but come on, we can do it, like, you know.
When the match resumed, England immediately took control. If Alan Ball was tired, no one could have noticed. 11 minutes into extra time, Ball crossed from the right. What followed would become one of the most controversial moments in World Cup history.
He whipped the ball in, I made the run to the near post, and I made it too early, came behind me, and hit it on the half turn and fell on my backside and had the worst view in the stadium when it came down from the crossbar, so I didn't really see it. But the person with the best view was Roger Hunt.
Jeff hits the ball and I'm running in. And I was so convinced it was over the line, and I thought it was bouncing to the roof of the net. And instinctively I turned away and raised my hand. And normally, if I'm thinking, you know, there's a chance of a goal, it would have been in there. But I'm still convinced it was a goal.
And the Germans went crazy, you know. It's not crossed the line. And even today, I go into Germany and they show pictures of it, and they say, oh, but the goal, the third goal, Bobby, you know. And I say, well, some could say that it's never been proven that it was in or whether it was out. But had they had the technology, you know, it would have been perfect. But they didn't have it, and the referee, the linesman gave a goal.
3-2. England had stolen the lead. Another grueling 20 minutes to hold on. Slowly, Wembley began to fill with the whistles of the crowd. As the final seconds ticked by, Ramsey's men battled exhaustion as they tried to hold firm.
I'm going berserk, yelling at Bob, get rid of it, give it to Banksy, get it out the stand, anywhere. They're already shouting from the box, time's up, it's over, it's finished. And not Bob. And all of a sudden, two German players opened out, and Bob ran between them in the middle of our half. And he ran on, stopped, checked, touched the ball with his foot, had a look up, saw Jeff first running away, dropped the ball over Jeff's right-hand shoulder, and Jeff just knocked it on and went and took it. And according to Jeff, he tried to kick it into the stand and went at the top corner for the goals.
I knew the game was finished, almost. I just meant to hit it as hard as I could, and if it went beyond the bar and the sand at Wembley into the crowd, it would take those few seconds for the game to be over, and that's all I meant to do. So, but fortunately it went in.
Jeff has achieved the hat-trick.
The final whistle. It was over. England had fulfilled Ramsey's promise.
I was the first to Jeff. I said, that's it, we've won this World Cup. We're the best in the world, Jeff. And he's going, I know, we are.
I dived on George Cohen. I dived on George. George is twice the size as me and stronger, and I've dived on him. We go, hey, what the hell are you doing with it? I said, we've won the World Cup. We won the World Cup, you know. George, what are you doing? What are you doing? Great.
And there was a picture taken of me where I must have just gone on the ground and I just felt totally exhausted and collapsed in a heap. Somebody took the picture. I can't remember whether I said, thank you, God, thank you very much, or whether I was just knackered.
I can't remember it. I remember crying, which the emotion of the crowd and everything. I don't mind that. I don't mind crying when you win. Jack came to me and he said, well, what about that kid, you know? And I said, well, I says, our lives will never be the same again.
The 30th of July, 1966. The greatest day in England's footballing history.
There was total euphoria around the stadium. I was privileged enough to be a spectator, lucky enough to have a little corner to stand in, and I was one of the extras. But great to be there.
I remember at the end, in the presentation, I wanted to watch all this, and I had to write my piece as well. And it was a real frustrating, in a way, joyfully frustrating, but you just wanted to be there. You were there, you were part of it.
After years of preparation, culminating in 2 grueling hours of the final, Captain Bobby Moore finally got his hands on the Jules Rimet trophy.
Isn't he sweating a lot, she said. Isn't he sweating a lot? And I thought, I fancy the Queen saying sweating and not perspiring. And, but it was, we'd worked hard. It was a hard slog, you know.
I went and got my medal, and nearly fell down the stairs. Everybody keeps saying to me, I missed a step, and I went boom, boom, boom down. Everybody had pictures with a cup and everything, team picture and everything. And it was just celebrations, really. You've just won.
There was a Nobby Styles jig, you know, with his teeth out and his socks around his ankles and holding the cup aloft in the air.
My wife's never forgiven me for it, you know, doing the skip. I was skipping, I wasn't dancing. People were saying I was dancing. I was skipping, I was so happy, I was delighted. So every 4 years they play it. And I have little kids coming up to me, you're the man with no teeth.
The England manager was characteristically reluctant to take any share of the praise.
He wouldn't have it. He wouldn't, no, it's you. And you can see as we're pulling him, it's like, come on, Alf, it's you. You're the one who did it, you're the one who gave us the belief. He didn't say England could win the World Cup. He said we would.
Alf was terribly pleased, and yet he still kept the stiff upper lip sort of thing. It came round and spoke to individual players to thank them very much for what they've done. Gives me a bit of chokes me a little bit.
He just came over to me and he said, young man, he said, you'll play a lot of games in your career, he said, but you won't play many better than that. Well done. I'm delighted for you. Didn't get carried away with it, but it meant so much to me.
Self-belief and teamwork had brought England victory. But Ramsey had also assembled a group of players who were fit, strong and adaptable, creating a system of play that would go on to influence football for years to come.
It gave coaches an opportunity to change their way of thinking. Alf Ramsey had proved that the 4-3-3 system worked, and the following year everybody was playing the 4-3-3 system, even though they didn't have the players to do it. Everybody wanted to be part of it, you know, everybody wanted to try.
Ramsey was knighted for his achievement, but was sacked in 1974 for failing to qualify in that year's tournament. He remains, however, the only England manager ever to win the World Cup.
He gave me an opportunity when maybe, as not a big player, many other managers in charge of the England may not have given me a chance. He was very clear on what he wanted and how he wanted to play. So I think that was a huge strength for Alf.
I've developed this spirit amongst us all. And we all played for each other. We all got on great with each other.
There we go, lads.
When we meet up, there's such a togetherness, and some 40 years later still having that same a feeling for those players. I have to say there can be no better position than being in the team that's won the World Cup, and at that particular stage was the best team in the world.
I mean, the day goes by where I don't think about it. I don't thinking about the game, and that's all I talk about. But it passes through my mind that that's what I did. That's what I achieved.
We won because we were a great team. We were a perfect blend. We had the right manager. We had the desire and to win it. And I think that it's something that you can never ever forget, you know.
And continuing the footballing theme, by a fluke, one man finds himself with the biggest job in the game. Ricky Tomlinson is Mike Bassett, England manager, in just a moment.